Thank you. Speaking to you tonight is my small way of honoring you. Thank you for everything that you do. When Joe Willis invited me to be among this year's speakers at the Emerson Hour, he admonished me to not begin with an opening statement along the lines of, I'm humbled to be here, I don't belong here, or something like that. I won't, at least not now. I'm here to answer Ralph Waldo Emerson's question, what has become clear to me since we last met? My answer to this question is that a subtle truth that is too often crushed under the weight of another truth that is in no way subtle can both be true. These two opposing truths can starkly, simultaneously exist. On one hand, we have the undeniable fact that a small percentage of the population blankets the airwaves and the bandwidth and the anti-police rhetoric that they spew. We've seen myriad attacks, both violent and verbal, on officers that are reflective of an underlying anti-police sentiment. On the other hand, the overwhelming majority, this silent majority of American citizens support and respect the police. They come to the aid of officers in need of assistance, anonymously pay for officers' meals, donate generously to police causes. I should probably back up. I should probably introduce myself. Many of you know me, either personally or professionally or both, but some of you may not. I'm currently the web editor of Police Magazine, longtime attendee, my first year in 12 that I'm actually not present for the conference. Most longtime ILEETA attendees know me as being that guy in that room with all the cameras and the lights and those two ruffians who look like they might have warrants. Well, I'm not entirely clear on whether or not they have warrants, but Tim Lawson and love you guys like brothers. Tim and Lawson and me in that room. And some of you know me for being that guy in that shared spotlight known as the shenanigans at the Munich. And at least one of you, shoulder fireman carried me across the street back to the hotel after closing time. I still have the t-shirt to prove it. Those of you who know me know that I was never a police officer. The joke goes, if you can't be an athlete supporter. Well, that's me. I'm a civilian police supporter. I've been adopted into this incredible family by an accident of fate followed by a purity of purpose, leading everything, learning everything I can about the police profession. I've been sheep dipped, as the saying goes, here at ILEETA, NTOA, California Tactical Association's Office of National Sheriffs, and other assemblies. I've been in the role of a force-on-force scenario. I've been the hostage. I've been the hostage taker. I've been part of the entry team in the stacked. I've even once came in third in a shooting competition of a dozen or so police officers at the end of an 8-hour training session. Third in that group is first in my book. So I'm pretty much the dictionary definition of a police supporter. But I'm not alone. There are myriad police supporters who have donated amazing things and conducted so many wonderful acts. I'll give you a couple of examples. You've probably heard of all. Donut Boy, who has traveled to like 40 states, delivered 70,000 donuts to say thank you to cops. The Running for Heroes kid, Zachariah Cartledge, runs a mile for every fallen officer, carrying a thin blue line flag. This is where I'm going to get choked up. I want to spend a couple more minutes on one particular example of citizen sport. For law enforcement. I apologize for the tears. This part, this is the purpose of my talk. I'm not suffering an allergic reaction. These are actual tears. Following the murder of Natalie Corona of the Davis Police Department, I was in attendance at her memorial service. I didn't know Natalie. She was a bright young officer who came from a law enforcement family who was killed in cold blood while investigating a vehicle collision. I lived about 3 hours away from where Natalie had her service. I made the trek. The night before it was to take place, I took up residence in a cheap motel not too far from where it was going to go down. Went to the Denny's across the street, had some pancakes or something, I don't remember, for supper. I wanted to show my support for her family, her friends, one of whom is a friend of mine. So the event took place at the arena of the campus of the University of Davis College, which holds about 8,000 people, I think. And it was packed. Packed to the gills. People on the outside of the building watching video screens because they couldn't get in. Most of those present, especially in the lower bowl, were police officers, of course, from all over the country. Blue uniforms, gray uniforms, green uniforms, brown uniforms, you name it, from all over. Following the ceremony, which was very emotional, the gauntlet, what I called the I-5 gauntlet. Cops lined for like miles, waiting for the hearse to come out from this facility that usually hosts basketball games and volleyball games and, I don't know, indoor golf. Cops lined for miles. And then after all of the cops were all of these citizens. All of these cars, we all piled into our cars. And we made that 40-mile drive north. 40 miles. Every single overpass. Citizens with handmade signs, thin blue line flags. Every overpass for 40 miles on a gray day in January. Like now, I wept as I drove. For Natalie, of course, but also wept because I saw decent Americans do decent things in support of law enforcement. It's a terrible shame that such an outpouring of support comes in the immediate aftermath of an officer who was killed in the line of duty. But there's something positive in there too, and I try to find the positive. It's the indisputable proof that support exists, even if it's regularly outshouted by a small percentage of people in the press and the public who want you to believe that most Americans hate you. For most Americans, you're the woodwork. Invisible. Most members in the military, employed by the sanitation department, share this unfortunate anonymity. They may not think about you until they blast past you and your radar gun doing 80 in a 65, or until they desperately need you to come to their aid. For the most part, though, they are not criminals. For many Americans, you're only noticed in your absence, like when Natalie Corona was taken from us at the age of 22 years old. As I said, when Joe invited me to be among this year's speakers, he admonished me to not begin with an opening statement along the lines of, "I'm humbled to be here and I don't belong here." So I will address this matter in my closing statement. Two seemingly opposite truths can be simultaneously true. I am humbled to be up here before you. At the same time, I sincerely believe that I belong here. ILEETA is probably the one place outside of my own home that I feel I truly belong. I love to be accepted by you as an adopted brother. This became clear to me to answer Emerson's question. As I stood at the reception center where Natalie was laid to rest, the room was filled with all of those uniform colors that I described. The same funeral, me in a black tie and black suit, white shirt, freshly at the hotel. I've been to too many of these. Natalie was the toughest. I'm just a police supporter, but I know I belong here with you as much as I belonged at that reception. I have each and every one of you to thank for that sense of belonging. I pray for you. May God bless you and keep you safe.